Welcome back
you.
to another episode of Operation Evil. And I feel like you need to do that ever. Welcome back to another episode of Operation Evil. I'm your host, Nyoka.
I'm Rachel.
And
That was sarcastic.
The look on your face right now. You're like, ugh.
I was trying to compete with your singing. Sorry.
I'm sorry that I ruined everyone's ears on that. But this is Rachel's episode. And I know we're on episode 72. We're getting up there. And what is it titled?
Cold-Hearted Johnston Fellas.
All right. I'm excited.
Let me just interrupt that by saying that song did not hurt my ears at all. It was absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
Your singing is beautiful every time.
I love you.
I love you too.
You're the best.
You're the best. Okay, now after the throwing up is done, as someone special would say. So once again, this story, okay, is like on my list of movies that traumatized me when I was a kid or movies that stuck with me when I was a kid.
I like this genre that you do.
Eventually the list will be ended and you won't have to deal with it no more.
Stop it.
So there's this movie called At Close Range. And I did not find out until recently because I was, behind the scenes, I was telling Nyoka about it and we Googled the movie. And I'll be damned if that's Christopher Walken that plays the dad. And I never knew that until this year, until the year 2023.
His disguise is good, though, in all fairness.
It sure was. Oh, my God, it was.
Yeah, I wouldn't have known either.
So the son in this movie is played by Sean Penn. And Sean Penn's girlfriend is played by Mary Stuart Masterson. I'm trying to think of what other stuff people would know her from. She was in the movie St. Elmo's Fire, I believe. I could be wrong about that. But she was a big actor throughout the 80s. And the story I'm going to talk about is loosely based off, the movie.
Oh my gosh, I just looked her up. She's on Fried Green Tomatoes. That was a big one.
Yes.
Some Kind of Wonderful. And Benny and June.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Isn't she cute?
She is so cute. Yeah.
She always wore her hair short, really short.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this that movie though, like I said, is based off of the story. Now the names in the movie were changed. There's some things that are a little different in the movie, but the gist of it is basically the same.
Can I just say that this movie was released in 1986? So did you watch this as a little kid?
Yeah.
Because I was 5 when this came out.
Then I would have been
6,
what's
7?
79? Yeah, what's 79 minus 86?
I don't know.
9 minus 6 is...
You would have been 7.
Yeah, that. We'll go with that. And I watched it repeatedly. And I remember there was this one part in the movie where Sean Penn is hosing himself off, he's got blood all over himself. And that freaking part just sticks with me. And also the song by Madonna, Live to Tell. She was married to Sean Penn at that time, or they were dating. And she wrote a movie, which of course, the music videos back then had clips from the movie in the video. So that part was in the movie as well, was in the video as well. And it just is in my brain. Look it up.
I'm gonna have to call your mom and be like, hey, were you hey, it's family movie night. Let's put on At Close Range. Or hold on, Rachel, I need to go clean or something. Let me put on a good movie for you. And she put on At Close Range over and over.
Why you traumatize me, ho?
I've never watched it, so I don't know.
I want to watch it again. Okay, let's get to the story.
Okay, sorry.
No, because I'll go on and on. So throughout throughout the 60s and 70s, there was this gang of criminals that stole and trafficked goods throughout Pennsylvania. Yeah, Pennsylvania, Jen. If you're gonna listen, I say Pennsylvania, not Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
Shit, I keep getting off track. So these people, they terrorized Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Northern Maryland. To some, an investigator once said the Johnston gang may seem like a bunch of hillbillies or country bumpkins that couldn't keep a real job, but they were actually cold-blooded criminals. And I really didn't look up country bumpkins to see what that meant, but I'm thinking it just means like country folk.
Yes, you're a country bumpkin. What are you talking about?
We're country bumpkins.
No, we're not that bad, but
We're
I'm sure
country bumpkins.
Yes, we're like on a thin line of it, probably.
Yeah. By the way we talk, we're bumpkins.
We're city bumpkins, you said.
City country. And what's crazy about this story too is like the more research that I did, because I really didn't know much about the family until I researched it, which was just a couple days ago. Like, this shit reminds me of the Goodfellas. Like, you know how like Robert De Niro in the movie, like how he gets paranoid after they do this big like bank job, they get all this money, and he tells everybody like, don't be buying anything huge. And then like you got the guy with the wife buying the fur coat, people are buying cars and stuff.
Yeah, and they're like, don't be stupid.
Yeah, and then he starts killing everybody. That's what this reminds me of. The Johnston gang consisted of leader Bruce Johnston Sr., who was a skilled getaway driver, his two brothers, David and Norman, and a handful of other guys that were from the same area, which was, I'll come across the name of the county later, but it was all in the Pennsylvania area is where they grew up. But they did have associates like in other states, like to help them, like they would sell these goods to these other associates, and then kind of like, you know, that person was sell to someone and so on or whatever. So they had associates in this, what I had mentioned, Delaware and Northern Maryland as well. So David, he was a very he had a very malice look to him. He could scare the hell out of you, someone said, just by looking at you. He was known as the brains of the operation. He would be the one that could disable an alarm. He knew how to bypass surveillance systems, and he was good at casing locations to know whether or not it'd be a good target. Norman, he was known as a nitwit. He was a partier, and he was thought to be a part of the gang just because he was a follower. Like, it was just something his brothers did, so he did it too. And among the gang members were Leslie Dale, Richard Mitchell, James Griffin, and Gary Crouch. And these are important names to remember because they become very involved later on. Bruce Sr. grew up in rural Pennsylvania and started committing petty crimes in his teens. Like, none of the boys, like, he was a kid of like 9. His parents had like a total of 9 or 10 kids. He didn't finish high school. He was about 15 years old and he got expelled from school. He had served time in juvenile detention center and served like 2 different stints in the 60s for larceny, which I think is theft, like Grand Theft Auto, I think. Do you know what that is?
I can look.
Okay.
I can look while you're telling the story.
Sure. After getting out of prison, he started the Johnston gang with Norman and David. And then that's when others followed along.
Okay, larceny is theft of personal property, and they give examples of like bicycles, motor vehicle parts, and accessories. So I think it's pretty much anything.
Okay, so that carried on with him then throughout into adulthood. Now, part of this gang, they were very articulate. They would use police scanners and call in false reports to throw off the police. So, like, if they had a job planned in order to get away, they would, like, deter the police by, like, sending them to a different location than where they were. It started out for the guys, like, stealing farm machinery and cars. Like, in the movie, like, it's a lot of, like, John Deere tractors and like those big ass mowers and stuff that they use in fields. It's stuff like that. Then it turned into antiques, cigarettes, guns, drugs, quote, by the ton. And then eventually it turned into murder. The attention of the police started to happen in the later 70s. The gang had robbed this amusement park in 1971. It was called Dutch Wonderland. And they also robbed a country club. It was called Media Heights Country Club. That was in 71 for the amusement park and 75 for the country club. So 4 years apart. Between the two jobs the two heists, they walked away with like $48,000 and golf equipment. They would use a crowbar to like to bust into the place or just pick a lock. They would use dynamite to bust open the safe. And if they had to, they would use drills to like get in through a wall or like a cabinet or whatever. And it's funny because Norman, the reason why they call him a nitwit, one of the reasons is because like after the heist that they did like at the country club, a couple days later, a police officer stopped him because he was wearing a t-shirt with the logo on it.
Oh, no.
Like, duh. Yeah. But, I guess, like, nothing came of it. It was just, like, whatever. But that's the kind of silly stuff that I'm guessing that he would do from time to time. Bruce Sr. even talked his son, Bruce Jr., or they called Little Bruce, talked him into starting his own gang. And so he did. The name of the gang is called the Kitty Gang.
How do you take that serious? Yeah.
I know. That is the stupidest name.
That's hilarious.
The Kitty Gang. Whatever. So that gang consisted of like 4 guys. Bruce Jr., he was 20 at the time. His stepbrother James, who was 18 at the time. Dwayne Lincoln, 17 at the time. And Wayne Sampson, 24 at the time. I don't know if I already said, but mostly they would steal tractors and like vehicles and things like that.
The Bruce Kitty Jr., gang would?
Yes. I'm just picturing like how toddlers have like the John Deere like fake car.
Yeah. That's what you picture them stealing.
Yeah.
Names are important. You got to pick a better name for your gang.
Yeah. I mean, why not like the Johnston Littles or something like that?
Anything but the kitty.
I'm going to get murdered for making fun of their gang. So Bruce Jr., he meets the love of his life. Her name is Robin Miller. Now, these days, okay, I'm going to tell you, she's 15, okay? And remember, he was 20. These days, your ass would be taken to jail for pedophilia, underage stuff. But back then, it was a little different. And I think we've mentioned this before. But, he loved her and they had planned to get married. And if you go by the movie, like, she made him a better person. And I think that was true in real life, too, because, like, there was people that kind of talked about her and they said, she was good to everyone. She had all kinds of friends. She loved to walk all over town. She would cut through the cornfield and go up to the local store. just a sweet, good girl.
Well, yeah, who's gonna
She
say
lived
anything to her? Her boyfriend's the leader of the kitty gang.
exactly that too. And his father. She she lived with her mother and three siblings in this 2-story old country house. And it's really cool to see how they recreated that in the movie. There's this one great scene where she sneaks out and she's running down the long driveway to meet up with him. I think that's in the music video too. In June of 1978, Bruce Jr. was arrested for theft of a truck. Now, mind you, the police are really starting to really like take note. Like they devoted themselves to getting this Johnston gang. So during his time in jail, Bruce Sr., he offers to bring Robin to see Bruce Jr. I'm just going to call Bruce Little Bruce. He offers to bring her to see Little Bruce. And I'm not for sure like how long he was in jail or whatever, but it must have been long enough that they really missed each other. So Bruce Sr., he gets Robin drunk and they go to this hotel room and he rapes her. And
Bruce Sr. does?
Yes.
To his son's girlfriend?
Yeah.
Ooh. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So Robin sends a letter to Little Bruce and tells him what his father did to her. And it was some articles that talked about like where she was so drunk that she thought maybe because there was, I think one of the uncles, Norman or what's his name? David was with Bruce Sr. too. So Little Bruce is one of his two uncles. But anyhow, she didn't know if both, like Bruce Sr. and one of the uncles raped her, or if it was just one of them. That's how drunk they got her. Like, I think it was like hard whiskey is what they gave her. And I'm guessing too, though, that like this dude, Bruce Sr., was a scary dude. Like, you didn't say no to him. You did what he told you to do. But at the time, I mean, you're 15 years old and you're not thinking that something like that's going to happen to you. It's your boyfriend's father. You know what I mean? So like.
And the boyfriend's locked up at this time too?
Right.
Oh.
And, you know, maybe at this point she doesn't entirely know what kind of criminal activity that Bruce Sr. is into.
Right.
So I thought that was really terrible. Like, how could you violate people like that?
Yeah.
And the trust. Terrible.
Mm-mm.
So police had already approached Bruce Jr. or Little Bruce and was like, you know, can you tell us anything? Can you help us out? Well, after he learned that his father raped his girlfriend, he was so pissed that he's like, I'm done. I will help you. He agreed to work with police. He thought to himself, this is not a family. And if I continue on this path, I'm not going to have a future. And this is no kind of life. So he wanted better for himself and wanted better for Robin too. And, you know, a multi-state investigation between local police, county detectives, state police, county and federal prosecutors, FBI, and federal marshals, they were all working together to bring this gang down. And at this point, Little Bruce, he did testify against in front of a grand jury, but the only thing he knew about was like theft of vehicles or equipment or whatever. Nothing about murder. And the police really at this point did not have any idea or indication about murder either. So Bruce Sr., he gets wind of this, that Little Bruce is working with the police, and the police, they want to hide Little Bruce, you know, keep him safe. And one article says that police had Little Bruce in a hotel, and another article said that Little Bruce was like, no, I don't want protection. I'm just going to go stay with Robin. And where this kind of conflicts is because in August, like August 30th of 1978, so let's backtrack a little bit. June of 1978, Bruce Jr., or Little Bruce, is arrested. He starts working with police. And then August, him and Robin, they go out for the day at Hershey Park. Yeah, the amusement park or the whatever, like where it's all like chocolate.
Yeah.
Like a Hershey chocolate. Yeah. So they spend the day together. That night, they get home at Robin's house, and Little Bruce is driving Robin's mother's car. And it's like this little Beetle. Well, Little Bruce turns on the dome light because Robin had dropped something on the floorboard, and all of a sudden this gunfire just starts spraying the car. Little Bruce's uncles came out from the cornfield and were shooting at them. Bruce was shot. Now, again, the two uncles were Norman and David. So, it's just terrible. So Bruce was shot 8 to 9 times. 2 of those 3 times, he was shot in the head. Robin was shot once in the neck, and it was fatal. Yeah, there's one report where they say that she was able to make it into the house, and she died on her mother's bed. Little Bruce, he was able to make it inside and call for help. He was immediately taken to the hospital for treatment. Of course, he survived. He was heavily guarded at the hospital. And before all this shooting happened, Bruce Sr. had approached Little Bruce and said, if you recant your testimony, I'll give you $12,000. Meanwhile, he's trying to find somebody to kill his son.
That's awful.
For $15,000. He said, it was rumored that he had said, I want to croak Little Bruce. I want to blow his head off. All because, he was afraid to go to prison. In July of 1977, this is when Bruce Sr., so a year beforehand, because the investigation was a good solid year. In July of 77, Bruce Sr., he starts eliminating snitches. He'd rather have his own son killed before going to prison. Between 1977 and 1980, there was all kinds of arrests and convictions of different members of the gangs that were taking place now. It started with, what we know of, Gary Wayne Crouch. He thought that he was on his way to a heist with Leslie Dale and Bruce Sr. They had suspected that he was talking, running his chops. So they lured him to this site where they told him that, I don't remember if it was him. They said that they needed help getting a tractor out of mud or, just to steal this equipment or whatever. But instead, they led him to this area where they shot him in the head, and then they buried him in a shallow grave. The investigation continues, and then, that brings us right before Robin is killed and Bruce Jr. is critically injured. Police don't know. Let me reiterate this. Police do not know about their murders yet. So within this year, this happens. The Gary Wayne Crouch has been murdered, and then Bruce Sr. is planning to kill his son and his girlfriend and all this stuff, and the police have no idea. They just think it's theft or larceny. And then in August of 1978, so right after Little Bruce and Robin were shot at, the Kitty gang members were murdered as well. One night at a carnival. Yeah. One night at a carnival, James, and this is after, I don't know if this is after or before actually that Robin is killed, but I do know that it is after Little Bruce has testified to the grand jury about theft. So James, which is the stepbrother of Little Bruce, he tells Bruce Sr. that the police have, they want him to testify in front of a grand jury and that he's been subpoenaed. And the police warn him, do not tell Bruce Sr. about this. Keep it a secret. Because they knew by this point, because, well, it had been after Robin was killed and little Bruce was shot at, because they knew what would happen. They knew that he would have him killed or kill him himself. So Bruce Sr., he tells James to stay out of sight. Do not go to the court date. I'm going to send you to California until all this blows over. James was taken to a hotel with Leslie Dale. They were both told by Bruce Sr., do not go out into public, just stay hidden. Bruce Sr. sees the both of them. They didn't listen very well. He sees them out in public in a pickup truck, and this pisses him off. And really, I think it's all about selfish motive because, I'm thinking, they're going to be seen in public and the police are going to pick them up and then, they're going to talk. So he has to eliminate them, right? So that night, the Kitty Gang, James Johnston, which is the stepbrother of little Bruce, Dwayne Lincoln, and Wayne Sampson, all told they were needed for a job. See, do you see a pattern here? This asshole uses a ploy to get people where he wants them and then just kills them. The young men were led to an area where a big hunting area. They were shot in the head and buried in a single grave. Bruce Jr. and Jimmy, which was the brother of Wayne, they became very concerned once their brothers came up missing. And Jimmy, he was a part of this gang too, and he, not so wisely, made a comment nothing better have happened to my brother. So guess what? Same ploy. Lured him out, said that they had a job for him to do at this landfill to steal this tractor, shot him in the head, and buried him in this landfill, and his body still has not been found. By the end of the year, those who were alive were arrested for burglary charges. Bruce Sr. was charged with obstruction of justice, and I believe Norman and David, they were charged with first-degree murder. Leslie Dale, Richard Mitchell, and others had really started talking to help themselves out, to shorten their sentences or whatever. Leslie Dale, he led investigators to the grave of the 3 young men of the Kitty Gang. Now, he was being indicted on a separate charge back in 1970. Him and Richard Donnell, they had stole checks and they were using Jackie Bean's driver's license to cash these checks. And they were afraid that he was going to start talking, so they hit him in the head with a gun and drowned him in a lake. Ultimately, Leslie Dale, Richard Mitchell, and James Griffin cooperated as witnesses to put the Johnston brothers in prison. In January of 1979, David and Norman were officially charged with 5 counts of murder, 1 count of criminal conspiracy, attempted murder, and aggravated assault, and a weapons charge. Bruce Sr. was charged with all the same counts, but a murder charge was added. So instead of 5 counts, there were 6. He was also suspected of murdering 2 officers in Kennett Square, Pennsylvania. He was bragging to somebody that he had done it, but he was not charged with it, and it was thought that it was a different gang member that was responsible for the murder anyways. Maybe he ordered the hit, but didn't actually shoot them himself. Norman and David's trial were held in Ebensburg, Pennsylvania, in January of 1980 through March of 1980. Richard Mitchell was the chief prosecution witness, and he did all this to try to really save himself. Although his stories were inconsistent at times, and he was a bit disruptive in court, he did offer vital information. He would complain, they would be do the cross-examination, and he would complain of a headache, or he would like want to stop and consult his lawyer, just like trying to drag stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, he was looking at 10 to 40 years, but that was increased to life because the DA at the time was like, I think she just felt like he was just jerking everybody's chain. As Richard testified, the Johnston brothers just grinned as he spoke. But there was things that Richard would say, like he didn't know the names of the 3 men that were killed of the Kitty Gang, but he could ID them by picture and he could ID who shot who. Bruce Sr. shot James, which he referred to as Boy 1. Boy 2 was shot by David, and Boy 3 was shot by himself. And they were shot all in the head. He said that Bruce Sr. offered him less than $5,000 and car repair in the sum of $15,000 to $2,500, like in exchange for digging a hole. And so him and Norman, Bruce Sr.'s other brother, they both dug the hole. It took about 5 to 6 hours. It was also said that Bruce told someone he could hear James gurgling while they were burying the bodies. When investigators learned of the grave, it didn't take them long to find the bodies. The 3 still had their work boots on. I mean, that just tells you that they were completely ambushed.
Mm-hmm.
On October 3rd, 1983, David was sentenced to 4 consecutive life sentences and consecutive terms of 12.5 to 26 years for related offenses. Norman was given the same sentence on October 20th, 1983. Bruce Sr.'s trial was held in Westchester, Pennsylvania, later in the year of 1980. The jury consisted of residents from Erie, Pennsylvania. He was sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences. And I'll kind of talk about it a little bit more, but the reason why they did this was because David and Norman, their trials were held together because the same charges, whereas Bruce had one extra charge, so that's why his was held differently. And the publicity was like crazy. Like they were trying to make sure that the guys got fair trials. All 3 brothers, they went to separate prisons, but they did remain in contact through letters. In 1985, Bruce allegedly talked another inmate into killing a fellow inmate because he stole his typewriter. Bruce Sr. and the inmate were charged but acquitted at their trial. The hired inmate lit the thieves' cell. So the hired inmate is the one that, Bruce hired to kill this other inmate. And the one who supposedly stole the typewriter, I'm going to refer to as thief. So the hired inmate lit the thief's cell on fire. How the hell did he get gas? I can understand a match, but how did he get gas? Because supposedly he threw gas on him and threw a match and lit him on fire.
Wow.
It burnt 80% of his body. It killed him. At the as they read the not guilty verdict, Bruce Sr. just sat there and smiled. What is all the deal with these guys just smiling about the shit they did?
Psycho.
He died. Bruce Sr. died in 2002 of a complication due to liver disease. So he died of natural causes. The lawyer that represented him complained that in his last years, I think it was last 25 years of prison that he was alive, that he was not treated fairly because he was placed in solitary confinement. Boo freaking who? A lawsuit was filed in the year 2000, but it was dropped. The prison said that they were just following guidelines, and the reason why, what they mean by following guidelines, and the reason why he was put in solitary confinement was because his brother, which again, he was in a different prison, but Norman escaped from prison in the year before in 1999. He was on the run for about 20 days. Norman took, it sounds like some Alcatraz stuff. He took a dummy and put it in his bed. There was even human hair to like distract the guards to make him think, he was in the bed, because they would do bed checks like twice a night or how many ever times. So around 1 a.m., he removed a 2-inch wide steel bar and this thick metal mesh from his 1 by 3 feet window, squeezed out this window and landed into this exercise area. Now, this area was in a blind spot of like 4 different watchtowers. He cut through a 14-foot high fence that was topped with high razor wire. About 10 feet away from that fence, he made it to another really thick ass fence that was about 30 feet long. He cut through that fence and fled. At some point, he stole a automobile, and he was still like around the area, but he was far enough away, but I guess close enough. So he was gone from 1 a.m. and then the police or the guards did not realize that he was gone until like the next day at 11 a.m. Police got tipped off when a clerk reported that someone had asked how to work a gas pump, and then someone else had reported their vehicle stolen. So he got returned back to prison, and then that's why Bruce Sr. was put in solitary confinement.
Dang.
Yeah, because, I mean, maybe they were thinking that the guys were, like, in cahoots, Bruce Sr., Norman, and David, they all filed appeals. As early as 1987, David filed an appeal for after discovered evidence. An evidentiary hearing was held in May and June of 87. A new trial was denied in September of that same year. He was claiming that, like, it was like habeas corpus? Like, he didn't get a fair trial.
Right.
Saying that evidence was not presented when it should have been. Leslie Dale's confession was learned during the trial and not pre-trial, and that's just not true. He filed a PCRA petition, which I forgot to look up what that means too, but he filed that petition in 1998, and that was dismissed in 2001. Allowance of appeal was denied in 2002, and the same followed suit for Norman. Like, they exhausted all their appeals. Like, they're not getting out, so just give it up. Now Bruce Jr., he was in witness protection for a while. He was
obviously didn't help.
Nope. He was in Wisconsin. He was in North Carolina, and he just walked away from it. He lived a very hard life. The last bit of information that I can find on any of these guys is 2013. And at the age of 55, Bruce Jr., he was facing a felony drug charge. Like, he was caught selling meth to an undercover agent. In 2003, he was sentenced to 1 to 2 years for theft. And then he served another 1 to 2 years for violating parole in 2009.
I totally forgot that he didn't die in that shooting.
Oh, yeah.
I totally forgot. I was like, wait a second. But that was Robin.
Yeah, and then, which I should clarify, Bruce Jr. went on to testify against his father and his uncles.
Good.
So he was, yeah. It was said that Bruce Jr. looked like a carbon copy of his father, with fierce eyes, tight-lipped grimace, sloping jawline. I mean, he looks a mess. Like, gray hair, gray beard. He looks very, very, the picture that was shown, very aged for 55. And then this is just like some useless information. In 2013, like I said, that is the most current info that I could find about any of the Johnstons. Like, I tried to find like information about Leslie Dale, Richard Mitchell, any of the other gang members. The only thing that I could find was that Leslie Dale died of throat cancer, but I don't know what year. Richard Mitchell, He died too, but don't know what year and what of. It cost $1.5 million to try the case. The
Wow.
Johnstons, the Johnstons, because of their how well known they were, that was the problem with, with making sure that they got a fair trial and why it was moved to other counties and such. The death penalty was missed by just a month. The Chester County DA that tried the case, Joseph Carroll, he was fresh out of law school when he went to court. Like, can you imagine that, like, as your first case?
No, that's wild.
Yeah. Bruce Sr. was like 39 at the time, like when all this was going down. And then he died at 63. David was 31 and Norman was 28. So they were all fairly young. We talked about the movie At Close Range and the song Live to Tell, but there was also a book. And if you want a lot of details, where's his name? Bruce Mowday or Mowday, Mowday. He was a Chester County reporter who covered the Johnston trials. He was there all along. And he wrote a book called Jailing the Johnston Gang, Bringing Serial Murders to Justice. That book was written and released in 2009. So that would be a good book to read if you like that kind of stuff. Their story was also featured on a TV show called Gangsters, America's Most Evil. That was aired in August of 2018, which was also the anniversary of, I believe, the shooting of the murder of Robin and the critical wounding of Bruce Jr. Another fun fact is that the area where the Kitty Gang were buried, that game area, like where it was all about hunting and stuff, that area was used to film The Village.
Oh.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? And then, like, because I was reading The Village, it was all like the set was built, but it was built on that land.
That is interesting.
Yeah. And also, I came across this person who was a senior editor and student at Westchester University, Julia Harpel. She said that her grandfather remembers the Johnston Gang. And before he passed, he remembers Bruce Sr. coming to his work looking for someone. And he worked at the Lucan Steel Mill in Coatesville, Pennsylvania. And it says that he was searching for his son's wife, Robin, but they weren't married at the time. And supposedly, maybe it's a different Robin or it's a coincidence. I don't know. But supposedly Robin worked at the mill. That doesn't quite make sense to me. But anyways, the grandfather said that he hid Robin because he knew what Bruce Sr. was capable of. And he knew what, I guess, like, the potential of what could happen to her. I don't know. And also, that gang member who killed the police officers in Kennett Square, remember the ones that they suspected that?
Yeah.
Okay. So the police officers, their names was William Davis and Richard Posey. Ansel Ham was supposedly the one that really killed the two police officers. So that's all I got.
I'm curious. The movie. I'm coming back to the movie.
Uh-huh.
What character does Sean Penn play?
So he plays Bruce Jr.
Okay. And the scene that stuck with you where he came in all bloody, what was that scene? What happened in that?
So in the movie, and also in the movie, the names are different. But anyhow, Bruce Jr. and Robin, they decide that they're going to leave town. They're going to run away together. They go to Robin's house to get some things. And when they're in the car, or maybe getting out of the car, they get gunned down.
Oh.
Yeah, and there's so much blood. And then, so that's when you see Sean Penn, or Bruce Jr., he's hosing himself off with the garden hose. And he puts on this coat and hides like a shotgun or something. It may be a different gun. Hides it in the sleeve of the coat. And he goes to his father's house. And he confronts his father. And he puts a gun to his father's head. And, you know, like the father, which is Christopher Walken, is scared and like, you know, please don't shoot me. Blah, blah, blah. And then I just remember the movie like kind of closing, like coming to an end. So that part is a little bit different than real life, but yeah, that's.
I can't believe I never watched this movie. I can't believe my mom didn't put this on for me.
Why would she though? Why?
Your mom did. Why didn't mine?
See, the murder shit has just always been there since I was a little girl.
Yep, it has. That's a good story. I'm going to have to watch the movie, though.
Yeah, I want to watch it again because I wonder, like, do I really remember? I want to say I watched it again probably about maybe 5 years ago or something. But I'm like, do I remember it the way that it really was? You know?
And this has nothing to do with anything, but, and I'm just telling everybody, like, you're all our best friends and whatever, but I finished You this weekend, the Netflix series You. I finished it.
You finished it?
Wow, girl, you need to get caught up on this. It's amazing. I don't know. You need to get caught up, but I don't know if you guys are fans, but
well, yeah. we finished Your Honor and The Last of Us, so I do need a new program to watch.
There you go. You need to get on that because it was good. It was very good.
And there's a guy that works, I think I already told you this, Nyoka, but it's funny because there's a guy that works at where my daughter works, and she's like, he looks so much like Joe and you.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, such a good show. I love that show. So we're thinking about for our Patreon watching the murder trials documentary of the Murdaugh case, right?
I wondered how you say their last name.
I don't know if that's correct, but that's what I'm going with. Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
Make it a conversation, make it fun. So if you guys are not part of the Patreon, I always put it in the show notes. You can be part of it for as little as $3 a month, and you get a bonus episode every month. So it's fun, just for you.
And you get a little shenanigans.
That's right. But all right, I guess that's all we have for you today. So thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you all soon. Goodbye.
Bye.